So we're really excited to be talking to you guys today, specifically about freelancing, what it's like to enter the industry and try to do things a little bit on your own, setting day rates and communicating with companies and trying to get yourself hired. So we're excited to hear all the questions you guys have.
Thank you guys so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
So Dave and I were both journalists before starting this company about 5 years ago, so documentary work is really dear to our hearts, but also we do commercials, we do corporate videos, we do just about everything. We do, we've got a feature film documentary we're working on, some short films, and you know, we started in jobs with journalistic agencies, so television news, and then also the Boston Globe, and I was doing documentaries for them for a while. So when we started the business about 5 years ago, it was a bit of a business shock to figure out pricing and working with freelancers and scaling up for large projects and payment milestones and, you know, cost per acquisition. You know, like all this stuff was pretty new to us. So it was a crash course in business and kind of, I guess, speaks to a lot about what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the big things is, you know, we started this business and we've always considered ourselves as creatives. And when we started the business, we very much just wanted to create awesome work. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you guys can identify. You're very passionate about what you do and your craft and your specific field of focus, but so much, even as a freelancer and also as business owners, what we just came to find is that so much of it is business oriented. It's very basic business, you know, related topics and things that you have to figure out. And so it quickly became not just about the creative. If we really wanted to survive in this industry, we had to figure out a way to just adapt and say, look, yes, there are times when you're working with clients that you have to put your creative vision and your creative input aside and just try to deliver what they want, which might be different. And so I think it's important for you guys, and I'm sure that's probably why we started this conversation, just to understand that creativity and your particular vision is important in this world. It's what's going to ultimately separate you from the person sitting next to you or from any number of people that you'll go against. But it's really your business savvy and maybe some of your understandings that will, I think, make sure that you have longevity. And the faster that you can realize that and the faster you can start working on those things, the better off you'll be.
We had a lot of trouble with it first. And it'll probably be the same for you guys if this whole topic is about freelancing, right? So it's like, is that when we started the business, what we thought was, and this worked for a little while, was if we do amazing work and win awards and we're in film festivals, naturally we'll get business. And what we realized is that actually that's kind of like hope marketing. It's kind of like, well, we'll just kind of do cool stuff. We'll put frames on Instagram, you know, we'll you know, win some awards, maybe we'll blog a little bit, and hopefully people will just reach out to us and hire us for jobs. And you have to understand that any exchange of money is about solving a problem for somebody. So whether you're a freelancer, you get hired because you're solving a problem for somebody. If we're a video production company, we get hired because we're solving a business problem for somebody. We're helping them in some way. And so as a freelancer, what you have to think of yourself is, how are you helping somebody solve a business problem? If we're a production company and we have a shoot coming up and we need a DP, and we have a certain rate and we've got a certain style it needs to be, then we're hiring somebody based on that, and they either accept or they don't. And you have to think of yourself very much like a business. And so you're helping somebody, but you also, this is where it's the hardest, is you have to communicate how you're helping them, which is what sales is. And it's not about having a slick pitch. It's not about sounding cool. It's not even about having a kick-ass reel. It's about literally how can you help. And so part of that is communicating how you can help, which means that you have to network, you have to be top of mind to the hiring people, you have to be professional and in a sense of maintaining relationships, and you have to be easy to work with. It was difficult for us because we just were kind of those people like, let's just do good work. People hire us and we do it great. But like what we realized in the transition was we have to sell ourselves. We have to actually write newsletters to people. We have to actually discover who our client is and then how to get in front of them, how to communicate what we do, and then how to stay top of mind with them. And people hire us because we are good at what we do, but we also can educate them on the power of video, on what video can do for their business. So it's really romantic to think of yourself as a filmmaker, but at the end of the day, unless you're some big name Hollywood director, you're getting hired because you are not only good at your job, but you have some level of what people appreciate in business. Professionalism, good communication skills, you're top of mind, all that stuff.
I think one of the things that's going to be challenging for you guys leaving school and coming out into the freelance world, if that's the direction you end up taking, is how do I, you have to start thinking in two ways. One, like Darren said, how do I help? Like, how am I serving the marketplace, whether you end up staying in Florida or whether you end up going back home, wherever that might be. Like, you have to look at the marketplace and figure out, like, how am I going to serve it and continue to get myself out there. But then also, because you're fresh out of school, you don't exactly have, say, the body of work or the experience. And I think one way to look at it is, yes, like there's, you know, in this industry, there is no beating experience, but all of that also feeds into your future in terms of networking. The more you're on set in any capacity, every single time you show up, whether you're a PA or whether you're hired as a gaffer or whatever that is an opportunity to network and to meet people and to be courteous and to put your best foot forward so that in the immediate future, you get rehired for future shoots and you're serving a purpose in your community. But in a future standpoint, all those people could suddenly move up the ladder. So, you know, that PA that you worked alongside and you guys were just kind of like chumming around, being nice to that person, because who knows, maybe they write a script one day and they end up becoming a director but they remember you and they want to hire you. So every opportunity to be on set is not only an opportunity to, yes, get just the experience you need and the industry knowledge, but it's a networking opportunity. It's an opportunity to meet people, and it's an opportunity to kind of basically sell your future into the industry.
And speaking also to what Dave said, when you're on set, don't be precious. You know, like don't be somebody, like we're all unique butterflies, but I'll tell you, one of our favorite experiences with a production assistant who we had a shoot in Australia, and we hired a local production assistant to help us out. And unfortunately, we don't have a ton of shoots in Australia, but we would hire this guy like over and over again. Everything we asked of him, his only response was, "Too easy." That's all he said the whole time. Too easy, mate. That was like the only thing he said. And he would bend over backwards for us. I mean, you have to be careful. You don't want to be taken advantage of. But when you're also starting out, you have to understand that there's a lot of competition for everything that you're doing and want to do, and you have to have a good, I guess, meter for what's being taken advantage of and what's not. But at the same time, if you're working with what you can tell is a reasonable crew and they're ethical and everything, you have to make it as easy as possible for them to hire you. One of our favorite DPs in town here in Baltimore is talented, but there's a whole bunch of talented DPs. The reason why we continuously hire him is he continues to just help us. So he's always around. He's always like figuring out ways to be in the office, to hang out with us. Always, if we have a passion project where we don't have the resources necessarily to pay a full day rate or something, he's like the first one to jump in and say, I'll help you guys. If you can build some of that that equity in terms of favor equity, we go out of our way to help other production companies when we can. The other day I volunteered on a music video set that didn't have much money, and we ended up using that DP, helped us out with a passion project that we wanted to do, a short film. And so there's a level of getting paid, being treated ethically, and not to be taken advantage of, but there is a very thriving market out there for people who are willing to also give into the creative community. So be willing to help, be around. This one DP we work with all the time, he's just around. Like, he's just literally, like, he was in our office hanging out one day, and I got a call from a agency that wanted to hire us for an Under Armour spot, and we were talking about like how we would shoot it, and he happened to be in the office, so I brought him over and I said, hey dude, jump in this call real quick. We're talking about how we're gonna shoot this spot. So obviously, I was gonna hire him for the spot. Don't be afraid to sell yourself as long as you're doing it authentically. Like, if you come across as a salesperson, that's the worst sales. The best thing you can do is just be around, be helpful, and be constantly working on your experience level. Also, the other thing to point out too is that in terms of pricing, pricing is one of the most challenging things in this business. If we're pricing out a project for a client, there's so many different factors that go into it, and sometimes we will eat some cost if we feel like this is a great client to have. They're a good company and we want to be partners with them. Sometimes if it's just a massive global company and we feel like we're worth it, we'll charge more because we're providing more value to a big global company. The same thing was with freelancing. There's a lot of psychology with freelancing in terms of you don't want to be the cheapest person on the block. You also don't want to be the most expensive. And it also depends on your market. If you're in LA, you can probably charge more. If you're on Baltimore, our projects don't go for as much as it would in New York or LA. So as a production company, we simply can't afford a massive day rate for a producer or DP or something like that. So when you're thinking about pricing, do a little research, talk to mentors, network with other creatives, find out kind of what the top of your market is, and you don't want to be the cheapest person in the world. You don't want to do free work necessarily. You want to be somewhere in the middle, and don't charge too much too soon. I feel like there's a few DPs in our market who are super talented young people, men and women, who are who have already priced themselves out of working with us, and they've got some cool work that they're doing, and some of them are actually getting work in different cities and very busy. But for us, they've priced themselves out, and it's hard to bring them on, and we just want to work with them. But so kind of keep that in mind too, is like, try to be reasonable and don't be precious. If you're a busy photographer and you're not starving and you have a decent rate, you will hire you a lot, if you're good and helpful.
I just want to jump in and add somebody. So I'm graduated from Ringling in 2017. So lot less experience in the industry, and I've worked for Early Light basically since I graduated. So just sort of something that I've noticed in a lot of the friends I've made here in Baltimore and those friends whom are freelancers. One, it's about keeping those connections with other freelancers in your community. Watch what they're doing, ask them questions about their experiences, and then they may even be able to put in a good word for you with somebody they've worked with, as well as comparing. You can use that to compare what they charge, what the average probably is in that community. So Sarasota has a small arts community, but it's definitely thriving and growing. So it's important to sort of pay attention to what everyone around you is also doing. And those relationships, again, are really important. They have the opportunity to be working on a project and they find out that their post-production editing time, and I know all of you guys aren't filmmakers, they're needing to put a poster together or for a trailer or whatever. If they know that you're looking for work and you've got a friend who's working on that set, they can immediately bring your name up and go, I know an illustrator, I know somebody who can do 3D motion design or whatever to work on post-production. That's another thing, is we do hire freelancers for post-production for 3D animation and 2D graphic design, and that's you charge by an hourly rate or a day rate, and it's all about word of mouth. Who do we know? Who do I know that I could refer to the guys to use? And at that point, it's like, well, who did I graduate from Ringling with? Who can I call real quick? So that's definitely something to keep in mind. Stay in touch with your fellow students. Remember where they are. If you're going to be going to LA to check out the industry, stay with them. If they have the ability to bring you into their offices where they work and you can meet some of their coworkers, that is just like another way that you're networking without even realizing that you're networking.
And I would add on to Becca's comments about who's mega talented. We're lucky to have her from your school, by the way.
Thanks.
So one thing to keep in mind is that in terms of networking with other freelancers. So yes, in a way they're your competition, but if you can develop a good rapport with other freelancers in which when they can't take a job, they refer you and vice versa, you're going to be better off than if you try to be the lone wolf and be overly competitive. We certainly, we're in a competitive environment. We have competitors. We're fiercely competitive as people and as a company. We want to do the best work and get the best jobs. But we also have great respect for the other creatives in our community. And, again, we know a ton of freelance positions in all of the film business. And almost all of the ones that we work with will refer other freelancers if they can't do the job, if they're busy or if they're on vacation. Especially audio engineers, audio mixers are kind of the best at that. They have the least oppressive ego out of anyone in the film business. They're just awesome people, and they work hard, and they're great at what they do, and they always, if ever I'm looking for a sound mixer in a new city, and one person can't do it, they'll refer 3 others, and those 3 will refer 3 others if they can't do it. But the same goes for DPs, producers, for makeup people, for wardrobe. I mean, if they can't do it, the best ones, the ones that we appreciate and we will work with, again, even if they refer somebody who is better than them, we'll still work with them if we have a relationship with them and if they help us. Again, it goes into, are you helpful? Even with our clients, some clients will come to us and say, can you do this project for this amount of money? And if it's too small for us, or if it's not exactly our what we do, we will refer other people. So it's being helpful, and that comes back to you in a lot of ways and builds you a lot of favor equity.
I want to touch upon, just to pivot slightly, so you leave and you may be wondering, how do I start getting in with these companies, wherever it is that you're going to end up after this? How do you start getting into those companies? How do you start developing those relationships? And so I just want to kind of offer a few general tips on what you can do, depending, and it might not be applicable to all the industries that are in that room that you guys might be servicing, but I think they're general rules of thumb. So first is, as a company, we do get a lot of emails from freelancers just letting us know that they're in the area. And that's helpful from time to time. Maybe the email comes across our desk at a time when we're like looking for additional help in editing or other sound mixers. But I'll tell you, it goes as far as probably standard cold calls do, which are, you know, it's really hit or miss, and it's going to be super lucky on whether or not we call you back. A good thing to do is just, I would make basically a list of all the production companies in town and just email them or call them directly and just see like, hey, can I stop by for like 10 or 15 minutes just to introduce myself? You're not trying to sell me on your entire reel right there. You're not trying to come in with all these examples on why you're the best and we should hire you. Just very strictly, you're just putting a face to a name and saying you're in the area and you're available. And the nice thing about in person is I'm way more likely to add you to my list of people who I'm going to call because I've met you and I've sussed you out. We're all should be really good at sussing people out pretty quickly. And so if I've met you and I'm like, hey, you know what, this person stopped in the other day, they're new in the area, I'm able to ask a few questions offhand really quickly, and then I can go about my day so it doesn't feel like this massive thing. And you came to me, which is another thing, is like sometimes I'll get emails and I'll get asked to meet for coffee and I just don't have time. And where if it's like, hey, can I stop for 10 or 15 minutes tomorrow morning around 10 a.m.? I'm going to be in the area. Most of the time I'm going to say, yeah, come on by. I'll ask you a few questions. You'll be in and out, and I'm more likely to probably add you to my list. Another thing that I would do is I would start looking into probably if you are orienting more in the film industry rather than the production industry, which can be different at times. Get in touch with your local film office when you get into wherever town you land and see if they just have meetups, networking events, times when creatives gather for coffee or whatever, because those are going to be good introductions into the area and also good introductions into what kind of productions are happening, what work is happening in the area. You know, here in Baltimore, there's a couple shows that are being shot. And if you had contacted the local film industry, they may be able to put you in touch with a producer, a gaffer, or just somebody you can meet with quickly and get your name out there. Don't just settle for sending out emails, because I don't overly think that's going to get you as far as you want to go. You really need to focus on, at least for the first time, can I just have 10 minutes of your time just to introduce, shake your hand, tell you hi, and offer a little bit of information, and then just kind of like walk away and follow up later on.
Yeah, and follow, like just kind of adding on to what Dave said about like what works and doesn't work for us. I know that every once in a while we get an email to info@earlylightmedia.com, which is what our email is when you go to our website and you just contact us, and it'll say, hey, you guys hiring? Zero chance of us hiring you. Hey, or like, hey, I'm a local, I just moved to town, you guys available to talk? Zero chance of us hiring you. Like, don't be, like, so the biggest thing that you're gonna fight as new to the market is you're gonna have, what's that called? When you're like that, when you feel fake, like phony? It's like, you know, like
imposter syndrome?
Imposter syndrome, right? So like you are going to be reaching out to people with no experience, and you're going to be trying to sell yourself that you can be helpful to them, which the number one problem that you're going to face is feeling like an imposter. So you'll dip your toe in, you'll send an email, and you'll say, and then you won't hear back, and you'll be like, oh, well, I did my job. You know, I reached out. But that is the worst thing that you can do. So you have to send the email, set up an in-person, just like Dave said, like we're in and out of the office, but just show up so we can see you in person. Then 2 days later, follow up with another email. Then a week later, say, hey, you guys got any shoots? Can I just PA? I'll do anything, you know, whatever you need. And then follow up 2 weeks later. I'm talking like 6 emails and an in-person until you finally get hired, okay? Like, it's not you'll feel like you've done your job by sending out like 20 emails at 20 companies, and you're like, well, I'm gonna sit back and hope that like they get back to me for this job coming up. I will tell you, we get emails every day from people who want internships, people who want to be a PA, DPs, like producers. I mean, like, there's people all the time who want to work for us, and we have our list of go-to people, right? So in order for you to get on that list, it's going to take a lot more effort, and you're going to have to fight that feeling of, well, I'm an imposter, I'm a kid, I really don't have any experience. You just got to like literally do it. And one day, actually, one young guy who we hired for a shoot a few months ago reached out to me 3 or 4 times.
Ryan?
Yeah, this guy named Ryan. Finally we had a shoot coming up, and he was like, can I, I was like, actually, you reached out at a good time. I need a PA for a shoot in a couple weeks. The only thing I would say is I wish he followed up afterwards. He did say thank you after the shoot. He sent me a thank you email, but where I think, and I'm just remembering this guy now because I haven't heard from him since. And literally, you have to imagine, picture in your head, you're reaching out to a production company, and these people, like, we're constantly busy. We're constantly selling ourselves to companies, to agency producers, to agencies, to whatever. Or we're thinking of creatives, or we're shooting, and we don't think about hiring people until last minute, right? So like, finally, we have to put together a bid for this commercial that's coming up, and we have to get this agency the bid in 3 days, and we need quotes from people, we need crew, and whatever. And it's like, I'm gonna go to the easiest people to contact who are top of mind, and I know they're good, and I know that they're what their rates are, and they're reliable. And so the only way for you to get on that list is to constantly be around. And marketing, like, as filmmakers, we think we do that kind of hope marketing. We're like, well, we'll just put good work. We'll have a kick-ass reel. We'll do some Instagram stuff, whatever. But guess what? That's not how businesses work. That's helpful. That's all good. You have to be good, and you have to have a good portfolio. But there's a whole other business side to it. And you guys have to fight that feeling of, I'm a filmmaker, or I'm a whatever, I'm a writer, I'm a graphic designer, and I don't really sell myself, I'm too cool. Unless you are unbelievably lucky and unbelievably talented, you're gonna probably take a lot longer to get going than you'd like, and it's not gonna be as regular. So, like, think of yourself as a product and sell yourself unabashedly, with no shame. Dave listens to this podcast about Kanye West, whatever you think of the guy, but how he...
Dissect,
yeah.
Which is a great podcast. Now I'm going to podcasts. If you guys do want a good podcast, though, and you like music and you like hip hop, there's a wonderful podcast out there called Dissect. Basically, in a nutshell, the guy takes a long form story approach to particular albums. So the first season, he dissected Kendrick Lamar's To Pimp a Butterfly. The second season was all about Kanye West, specifically the My Dark and Twisted Fantasy.
Like how he went to producers' houses.
Yeah. So they go into backstories just to tell a little bit. And I think the story that Darren's getting to is Kanye, for all of his talents that he may or may not have, or however you think, the guy is a hard worker and he is a hustler. And he would go and he worked for a long time trying to like break into the business, and it was hard. And when he was a young kid, was like, I'm doing this. He was writing, rhymes, and he was doing all these things. He would just show up to this producer's house at like dinner time, and the producer would be like, get out of here, kid. And he would just like shoo him away. And Kanye just persistently went back and back so often that finally the guy was like relinquished and was just like, okay, fine, like you can hang out in the studio. And then Kanye took that opportunity and then just tried to seize as much as he could. He started being able to, he came in clutch writing one time for something, and that led to more opportunities. And so if nothing else, what got Kanye to where he is was just persistence and hard work. Like just, he had no qualms. He didn't sit around and be like, I'm too good for this, I don't need to do this. Like, no, he just flat out just did it. And so, you know, I think the moral really is, like Darren said, is like, especially when you're young, but even us, we constantly, you have to put ego aside. Like ego does not serve you well most of the time, especially in sales. You have to pound the pavement. You have to get in front of people. You have to remind them that you exist. You have to remind them that you are very nice and you can solve their problems. And it's all in the hopes that when that opportunity happens, most people, when they think of a situation, they think of one or two people off the top of their head. And then if those one or two people are busy, then they start dipping into everyone else. Our goal as a company, my goal as a human being, as a freelancer, you know, is I want to be one of those two people that you think of immediately. I want to be one of those two people that you instantly call. We've got this opportunity. Okay, I'm going to send something to Early Light Media, and then, okay, maybe I'll have a backup. You know, that is exactly the position that I want to be in every single time.
Send us updates. You know what I mean? Like, hey, Darren, Dave, I just shot this cool short film, or I just was I'm really learning the business, and I just DP'd my first thing. Like, check this out. What do you guys think? Ask us to be your mentor, and we'll just hire you. It's a really slick way of getting in the door here.
Yeah, I just want to carry off that, because sending your work is important. I will tell you though, straight off, most people who send our stuff, whether through its info or through direct, I actually will watch it. I do watch a lot of stuff that comes to me. I just won't call, because I'll be like, well, we're not ready to hire, or I'll be like, okay, so you could send me the best work. I watch it all because I'm always interested in seeing what people are doing. It feeds my own creativity, so I'll watch everybody's stuff. I just won't follow up because it's bad timing. And that's really where the onus is on you, not just to send the work and hope that I think by God's grace I've seen something and I'm like, I must have this talent on set. It's more like, okay, great, you did the first job, which was okay, you like at least touched base, but the onus is on you to make sure that when the job pops up for me that I'm ready to hire, that you're kind of there in the corner being like, oh, I'm already here. I've been hanging out for days.
And,
so like,
and hopefully in very moody, creepy light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, you're there to basically solve my problem when it pops up. It's just, you just have to understand that the onus is all on you to consistently sell yourself and get yourself out there.
And here's the thing, is that there are a million of people just like you that don't get that.
Yeah.
Like literally, it's not that hard to get ahead. There's plenty of work out there for everybody, right? Like as a production company, you know, when we first started this, we were like, oh my God, there's like 20 production companies in Baltimore. Now there's like 100. And, you know, it was this concern of like, well, we're just one in a million other production companies. But what we quickly realized was that actually there's few production companies as well as freelancers in general that actually know how to market themselves. Yeah. Like there's very few. So like if you guys did all the things that we're saying today, you're successful because there's like nobody doing that.
Yeah. I'm gonna brag on Becca a little bit because I think her story to come here is like interesting in terms of what she went through to kind of get here. And it's not like we put her through hoops or we asked her to do a physical challenge or something like that. But so
we have done that before.
Yeah. And I will say that it comes with a big caveat. Becca was lucky. Her mom knew my mother. And so at some point, I think her name had crossed in front of my desk. But that's not why we brought her on as an intern. And that certainly has nothing to do with why we hired her. So when she was looking to intern, she, I think, had reached out at some point, and the lucky thing was that, like I said, there was a connection. So she could say, hey, look, my mom knows your mom, like I'm going to Ringling, and I'd love to intern with you. And I was kind of like, okay, like, no problem, like whatever, but we don't take that many interns. We're very selective, and so for many reasons, I was like, okay, well, great, cool. But Becca was persistent. She followed up, she emailed. At one point, I was on vacation in, where did we vacation? You drove down. I was with my wife and my kids and some friends, and we were just south of wherever.
You were in Anna Maria Island.
Anna Maria Island.
Yeah.
And she had reached out, and I was like, I can't process. She was like, how about I drive down? And I hadn't even met her in person. She was like, how about I just, like, I'll just show up, like, I've got to work, but can I just pop by and say hi? This is a good opportunity. And I was like, yeah, sure, okay, and she did. She showed up. We spent about 20 minutes just kind of talking. And I just, in that meeting, I was like, two things stood out. One, she's a go-getter, which I will take someone who's a go-getter over somebody who's talented. Not that you weren't talented, but I will take that any day because it shows an eagerness to better yourself, which will show an ability to continuously learn. So it immediately showed me that she's a go-getter. And two, that this wasn't a one-off. Long story short is, I brought that back. I talked to the guys. We had said, okay, when she got back, when school ended for the summer, she came up, she met everybody. We all were kind of impressed with her eagerness. We brought her on. And then she again, during that internship, that 3 months, sees the opportunity to show that she was willing to do anything. And that's ultimately when the position opened up. We were like, Becca was top of mind, yeah.
Yeah. What's your name? Austin, nice to meet you.
What are you use to figure out client, or what are some things you do to figure out who, like you said, make a list of everyone in the area? What are some things that you can do to make that list?
Just Google, like if you're in Sarasota, say Google video production companies in Sarasota, Florida. Like that's literally, if that's what you're going for, if you're trying to get freelance work there.
Most every production company will, I would say, the majority of them list their creatives. And I would immediately just try to find the emails or the contact info for the directors, for the producers, or for the creative directors. Like those are the decision-making three.
Shameless, just be shameless.
Those are the three that are going to be the ones who are going to be doing the hiring for every job. You don't want to waste your time with, of course, if you can meet a DP or a PA, not that they're not important, but they're typically not the ones doing the hiring for sets. You want directors, you want producers, and you want creative directors.
I just want to, if I can, if we have the minute, one last thing to throw in there, and this is a friend of mine, recently went through this experience, was called as a potential to work on a project, and he didn't give an answer right away. He figured out he could do it. He called back a half an hour later, and they had already filled the position. So I think as a freelancer, that's something to keep in mind, that if they call you and you don't give them an answer, they're going to be calling somebody else right away. So that's just something to sort of prepare yourself for, that if you get the opportunity it's just take it.
Yeah. Or I mean, if nothing else, respond, like give them an idea. Because if we don't hear back, I'm pretty quickly, especially if it's a fast-paced project, I will move on, or I'll send out a flurry of emails to just fill that gap as soon as I can. So sooner you can just say, like, even if you're looking into something, hey, I'm interested, I'm very interested, I'm just looking into it, like I can get back to you in the next half hour. Usually that's enough to buy a little bit of time.
Cool. Thank you so much, guys. We hope you learned something.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.